Hello, I'm Bailey Leisure as I'm here recapping Week 9 of the 2018 NFL season. So to start off this week, the first game of the week, the Raiders against the 49ers, and Nick Mullins, who was the third string quarterback, got his first start for the 49ers, and what an impressive career game. Granted, this was against a really bad Oakland Raiders team, but man, impressive. 262 yards, three touchdowns, and man, it's so interesting because how much the Raiders have gone off the hill. I mean, 15 months ago, they were looking like they were an AFC contender, and now they're competing for the number one draft pick. This was kind of people called this game a tank bowl, and if it was for better draft pick wise, the Raiders won this game, but the 49ers actually did win this game in a blowout victory, 34-3. Steelers versus the Ravens. It's a big rivalry in the AFC North. It was really a competitive game. But ultimately, the Steelers, thanks to James Conner, was a big part as he got a receiving touchdown and ran for 107 yards as he and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, led by Ben Roethlisberger as well, and Antonio Brown, were able to get some scores and were able to, in a close game, the Steelers were able to win this game 23-16. Moving on to the Lions versus the Vikings. The Vikings, after a bad loss against New Orleans Saints last week, they were able to overcome that. Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford didn't really have good games either, but I think the noteworthy game or return that the Vikings got this week, which was able to help them get the victory 24-9 this week, was the return of Dalvin Cook as he ran for 89 rushing yards, only on 10 attempts as him and Latavius Murray split time running. They didn't run the ball a lot in this game. They only ran about 23 times, and even the receiving core didn't do their job. Adam Thielen kind of had a weak game because of Kirk Cousins didn't have a great game either. But the Vikings were able to come away with the victory in this game as expected. Dolphins versus the Jets. This was kind of a bore game, if you ask me, a low-scoring affair. Neither quarterback looked really impressive. Frank Gore, I think, passed another rushing leader as he gets his rushing yards total up as more. The Dolphins, I think, played good defense in this game as they were held to just 6 points, and they were able to come away with a 13-6 victory. And bad news for the Jets as they lost Sam Darnold next week due to I think, sprained ankle. And the Dolphins are not going to have Ryan Tannehill, so they're going to have to go with Brock Osweiler for the time being. But the Dolphins were able to come away with the victory. The Falcons versus the Redskins. This was a very interesting game as the Falcons were able to really dominate a 5-2 Redskins team coming into this week. And they were able to just Matt Ryan just had a great week, throwing over 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. Julio Jones had a big game. He caught 7 passes. He caught 121 yards. But guess what? He finally scored! Yay! But no, that was a big thing. Calvin Ridley had a really good game. I think this is really just was a big game for the Atlanta Falcons offense, and they were able to overcome the Redskins, who Alex Smith did throw for over 300 yards, but the running game didn't really get going. The Falcons defense was able to shut down a 33-year-old Adrian Peterson, and the Redskins lost a couple players this week to season-ending injuries, including Paul Richardson. So the NFC East is wide open. The Falcons, thanks to this, they've won 3 games in a row now, and they're back in the NFC playoff race thanks to a couple straight wins, and we'll see where this goes for them. Chiefs versus the Browns was the first game for Greg Williams as the head coach for the Cleveland Browns after Todd Haley, the offensive coordinator, and Hugh Jackson, the head coach, were fired. Didn't really make that much difference. This defense just could not stop Patrick Mahomes, who threw 375 yards and 3 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt had a big game, running for over 90 yards and a couple touchdowns. Baker Mayfield did look a lot better as he threw for almost 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, but that Browns defense was just no match for the Chiefs' offense as the Chiefs continue to be the top team in the AFC as they won this week 37-21. Carolina Panthers versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ryan Fitzpatrick once again took over the starting quarterback position for the Buccaneers, but that was just no match for Cam Newton, and that offense didn't have a really impressive game, but they did put up 42 points as Cam Newton threw for a couple touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey had a couple rushing touchdowns and had about almost 150 yards, all-purpose yards, as he ran for 79 yards. And also received for 78 yards. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. Ryan Fitzpatrick didn't look that bad. He threw for 243 yards and 4 touchdowns. But the Panthers had a huge lead in the first half, and that they just were able to hang on in this game as they won 42-28. The Bears against the Bills, they pretty much dominated this game. The Bears, as expected. Nathan Peterman just proven why he's probably one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. It just threw for three interceptions. Only 189 passing yards. I mean, just they don't know what to do with Josh Allen out and Derek Anderson's hurt. I mean, he's a third-string quarterback right now, and Trubisky didn't even throw. Wasn't that really impressive? It was just defense. I mean, Khalil Mack didn't even play in this game. I don't know what to say about this game other than the Bears dominated, and even their best players didn't play to the best of their ability. Texans versus the Broncos. The Texans were able to come out with a very close victory and won their 6th straight game, but that wasn't really what people were talking about this game. A couple things to noteworthy in this game. Demaryius Thomas' first game as a Texan against his former team. They honored him, but I think the big question was the fact that the Broncos had a chance to win this game, and they had a timeout left with under 30 seconds. They were at near the 30-yard line, and they had a chance to get a game-winning field goal and get more. They had a timeout left, and they had a chance to get more yards for Brandon McManus, but decided to opt for a decently long field goal, and they missed the field goal and lost the game. And it was just poor clock management from the Denver Broncos, and really a game they probably should have won, and that just wasn't the case. And I got to say, Vance McDonald for the Denver Broncos as a head coach, I don't think, he's probably going to lose his job at the end of the season. But the Texans were able to come away with the victory because of that mistake, and they've won 6 in a row and are one of the hottest teams in the AFC right now. The Chargers versus the Seahawks. This was a pretty close game, as I kind of expected. Both quarterbacks didn't throw very impressive, but they did get a couple touchdowns each. The Chargers, as expected, won this game, but the Seahawks almost had a chance to tie this game. They were on the 1-yard line, but could not score. A false start penalty put them back to the 6, and they just couldn't score. But Chargers, another one of those hot teams in the AFC right now, and they were able to come up with the victory 25-17. And then the game of the week, one of the games of the week, the Saints versus the Rams. The Saints dominated the first half. They led by 3 touchdowns. With the Rams, they came back and eventually tied this game. But really thanks to both quarterbacks did very well, throwing for nearly 400 yards each. They threw a couple touchdowns. But Drew Brees he was just too much, and he was able to come back. And finally, the Saints were able to give the Rams their first loss this season. Probably the Saints right now from that, they're probably the top team in the NFC. But I think in a way it is probably good for the Rams to lose their first game. They don't have the undefeated stigma around them anymore, and that will probably help them for the rest of the season. But the Saints, they're looking like the top team to be. They look like probably them and the Rams look like the most complete teams in the NFL right now. The Saints were able to come away with the victory in this 45-35, and who knows, this might be a preview of the NFC Championship game this year, and I personally think it is. The Packers versus the Patriots. I mean, Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady just ended up being a little bit too much for the Packers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers did play well, but a couple turnovers, and it looks like, you have Aaron Rodgers. I feel like the Packers have just not played well around Aaron Rodgers, and who knows, maybe because of that extension, maybe Aaron Rodgers is regretting signing that extension. But just Aaron Rodgers is doing everything he can to keep them in football games, but they've just not been able to back him up. But the Patriots were able to come away with this victory. And then the final game of the week, the Titans versus the Dallas Cowboys. And the first quarter, the Titans, they looked, I think they turned the ball over a couple times in the first quarter, and they just looked whack. But the Cowboys' offense just could not convert on those chances. They only got 1 touchdown, I believe. But, obviously the Titans were able to adjust on that. Marcus Mariota didn't have an incredible game. He threw for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. However, he was able to overcome that weak Dallas Cowboys defense, and and they were able to come away with the victory in this 28-14. A lot of people are calling for Jason Garrett's job, but we just don't know with the ownership situation in Dallas with Jerry Jones. But overall, the Cowboys, I think Dak Prescott's regressed in his rookie year, and it showed. And I honestly, right now with the Cowboys, I just cannot see them competing. Even though the NFC East is still pretty open right now, I just don't see it happening for the Cowboys being a playoff team. Before I get into players of the week, I'm going to talk about some news that happened before Week 10 of the NFL 2018 NFL season, as a couple signings happened. One signing that happened, Bruce Irvins, who was recently released from the Oakland Raiders, signed with the Atlanta Falcons, and I gotta say this is a pretty good signing for the Atlanta Falcons, as their defense has been pretty decimated by injuries, and that's a really big pass rush force for them. And the Falcons, who've won 3 games in a row and are back in the NFC playoff race, this could help them and really rejuvenate them, and I really like this signing. And then another signing that happened that impacted the NFC South, as Dez Bryant finally signed with the team, and he signed with probably the hottest team in the NFL right now, the New Orleans Saints, and he just helps this team make it more into a Super Bowl contender, and makes an offense with guys like Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, and Mark Ingram, and the Hall of Famer Drew Brees. I mean, this just puts another weapon for them, and I think the Saints, watch out for them. They probably are scared. Who knows? I mean, they beat the Rams. I mean, I think they're a better team than the Rams right now. Even though people think the Rams are going to go to the Super Bowl, it's really close. But New Orleans, this just makes this. That was the final, I think, another piece they needed, and this is just going to help them out. And then my players of the week, the offensive players of the week. I'm going to start off. This is going to go to a quarterback. It could have gone to many, but I'm going to award it to Drew Brees. Able to defeat the LA Rams and become the first team to beat the Rams this season. And he was a big reason. 346 yards, 4 touchdowns. This is coming off a game where the Saints beat the Vikings, and he only threw for 120 yards. So he proves, guess what? I can do. I can put up big statistics and beat these top teams. And then the defensive player of the week goes to Danielle Hunter of the Minnesota Vikings, as he had 9 total tackles, 3 tackles for losses, and 3.5 sacks. And is a reason why the Vikings, despite a little bit of offensive woes, were able to come away with the victory in this. And the Vikings defense, I think, in the middle of the season right now, has picked up the pace, and is why they're the top team in the NFC North right now. And that's it for my Week 9 NFL recap. As always, follow me on Twitter at BaileyLaser96. Check out tomorrow as my Week 10 NFL picks for the 2018 NFL season will come out, so check that out. If you liked the video, click like, subscribe, and leave your comments below on what you thought of the Week 9 of the 2018 NFL season. So thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.